Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, Hamas releases more hostages on day 7 of a temporary ceasefire with Israel. Plus, we'll take you live to Archer Park in Prestonsburg, where many folks are driving through this time of year.
Plus, we could see some 60s by this weekend. The details on above average temperatures coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Hamas freed more hostages today, hours before the latest extension in the Israel-Hamas ceasefire was set to expire. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in the region pushing for the release of even more hostages, as well as an increase in humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians in Gaza. CBS's Natalie Brand reports from the White House.
21-year-old Mia Shem ran into her mother's arms Thursday night. She was one of the hostages Hamas released on the 7th day of the temporary ceasefire. But new violence has heightened tensions. Israeli police said 3 people were killed in a shooting at a bus stop in Jerusalem. Hamas claimed responsibility. The attack came a day after Palestinian officials said Israel Defense Forces killed 2 boys during a raid in the West Bank.
We're reminded yet again by the events in Jerusalem today of the threat from terrorism that Israel and Israelis face every single day.
During his 4th trip to Israel since the October 7th attacks, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pushed to extend the pause in fighting.
This process is producing results. It's important, and we hope that it can continue.
Blinken also traveled to the West Bank and met with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. The White House says the 2 men discussed efforts to surge humanitarian assistance into Gaza and discussed improving the security and freedom for Palestinians in the West Bank. In Gaza, where the Hamas-run media says the fighting has destroyed more than 60% of homes, Palestinians took advantage of the lull in airstrikes to shop for food and supplies. This man says people are scared of the fighting resuming. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed Thursday to continue the war until all the hostages are out and Hamas no longer poses a threat. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Secretary Blinken said today 2 Americans were among those injured in the Jerusalem bus attack. Israeli officials say around 30 women and children and 125 men, including several dozen soldiers, are still being held hostage in Gaza. House Republicans are pushing to formalize an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. That's from multiple senior GOP sources. Up until this point, House Republicans have not had the votes to legitimize their inquiry, but they now want to strengthen their subpoenas and compel testimony after the White House told Congress the inquiry lacks constitutional legitimacy without a formal vote. Former President Donald Trump is once again under a gag order. A New York appellate court says it has reinstated it for his civil fraud trial. It bans all parties in the case from making public comments about court staff. Judge Arthur Engoron is overseeing the trial and originally imposed the order. He says he plans to enforce it vigorously. An attorney for Trump says the appellate ruling marks a tragic day for the law. A battle is brewing between the presidential election frontrunners over the Affordable Care Act, which affects tens of millions of Americans. Former President Trump has renewed his attacks on the program and is vowing to demolish it. President Biden is warning voters the effort to repeal the landmark health reform law is a threat to families across the country. Julia Benbrook has more.
Former President Trump says that replacing the Affordable Care Act, which is commonly referred to as Obamacare, is a top priority for him. Trump posted on social media saying Republicans should never give up on trying to repeal Obamacare, adding that the failure to repeal it was a low point for the Republican Party. It was punched home by late Republican Senator John McCain with his now famous thumbs down. And while promising to deliver his own, quote, phenomenal plan, Trump never proposed one. Now, some of his own team members were surprised by his recent declaration, since they have not yet drafted a health policy alternative. One Trump advisor told CNN the declaration completely came out of nowhere.
My predecessor wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
President Joe Biden sees this as a new campaign opportunity, releasing this ad on Thursday and speaking about Trump's comments on the trail.
Over 40 million Americans today get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. His plan is to throw them off that plan.
A poll by the Kaiser Family Foundation in May found that 59% of Americans said they had a favorable view of Obamacare. Because of the popularity of Obamacare, it's a tricky topic for the rest of the Republican presidential hopefuls to take on. But it's likely they'll have a chance to weigh in on Trump's comments and Biden's reaction at the 4th GOP presidential debate that takes place next Wednesday. Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Dr. Anthony Fauci is set to appear before the House Select Committee investigating the pandemic. Fauci, who is often considered the face of America's public health response during COVID-19, will participate in a 7-hour interview January 8th and 9th. Republicans have long sought Fauci's testimony about his handling of the pandemic. The committee says it is investigating the origins of COVID-19, mandates, scientific censorship, and more. The world's largest annual climate summit is underway in the United Arab Emirates, a major oil-producing country. Delegates formally approved a deal to adopt a new fund to help vulnerable nations cope with costly climate disasters resulting from drought, floods, and rising sea levels. The UAE has already pledged $100 million to the fund, while the U.S. also pledged a significant amount.
We have been working very, very closely with other Transitional Committee members this entire year in order to design an effective fund that is based on cooperation and does not involve liability or compensation. And we're very much committed now to work with our Congress to provide $17.5 million specifically towards the fund.
During the next 2 weeks, world leaders will also try to hammer out a plan to accelerate the transition away from fossil fuels.
Well, we are tracking some dry, also comfortable weather across the mountains into your Thursday evening. Here's a live look from Lawrence County, close to Louisa, courtesy of the Kentucky Mesonet. And you can see not a cloud in the sky as the sun sets on this Thursday, and those temperatures are still comfortable at this hour. Most of us in the middle to lower 50s and a few upper 50s as well, up to 57 for London, also Somerset, 56 in Jackson, and 53 over in Pikeville. Once the sun sets, though, those temperatures will start to fall into the middle and lower 40s as we wake up on Friday. Up on First Alert Pinpoint Doppler, once again, be sure to enjoy the dry weather while you can, because those changes are on the way as we go into late tonight, also on Friday. But this evening, if you have those plans to fire up the grill, those temperatures in the upper 40s and lower 50s as once again we stay dry under a partly cloudy to mainly clear sky. But notice as we zoom out, we are tracking that next rainmaker over Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, and this moisture will continue pushing off into our direction as we go into your Friday. Timing out those rain chances in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thank you. Well, it's time to get into the Christmas spirit, and one perfect place to do that in Prestonsburg is at Archer Park. There are more than 1 million lights at the park, giving the community and tourists the perfect place to take part in the Christmas magic. WYMT's Olivia Calfee is live to give us an inside look. Olivia?
That's right, Steve. I am standing right now in the middle of Archer Park, and it's finally getting dark outside, and you can see those more than 1 million lights bringing that Christmas spirit to Prestonsburg. So I'm actually going to step off the camera and give you all a little bit of a visual of what we're seeing out here right now. I know that you all saw that light tunnel behind me just a second ago, and then you can see the hill is lit up. There's a Christmas tree. It's massive. It is so pretty to see out here right now. And as you keep going around, there's this joy sign, which I personally love. I think it's so cute. And then if you keep on driving down the road, there's a perfect place for family photos. It's so cool. And this is only a portion of the park that you all are seeing right now. I hope to show you all a little bit more here in just a few minutes, but I also have a few surprise special guests out here with me right now. There's so many fun characters at the park too. It's perfect for kids. There's been cars driving through and everyone just gets so excited whenever they see the characters, including myself. So everyone needs to come out here. Once again, it's finally starting to get dark. You can see the more than 1 million lights. It's just beautiful and you can really feel the Christmas spirit. It's magical. But I am going to hang out with Santa in just a few minutes. I'll bring him on at 6 o'clock. So y'all make sure that you stay tuned. But for now, I'm live in Archer Park. Olivia Calfee, I'll send it back to you.
All right, really beautiful there, and video actually doesn't do it justice. Olivia, thank you very much, and again, we'll check back in with her at 6 o'clock. But coming up next on Mountain News at 5:30, a survey found about 4 out of 10 social media users have made an impulse buy in the past year. We have ways to curb the urge to overspend.
Plus, rain chances and breezy conditions return as we close out the work week. Those details coming up after this break.